Okay, so let's kickstart today's session, right? So for those of you guys who just joined us, right, a very warm welcome. So just a quick introduction of myself. I'm Lee Sing. I provide FX advisory to institutional clients. You can also find me on LinkedIn, right? So if you guys have any questions with regards to the sessions that were done previously. And just a quick disclaimer before getting the session started, right? So the information presented here, it's not to be treated as investment advice. It's for educational purposes only. So this is the agenda that we will be covering for today. So we will first take a look at the key economic events, and following that, we will be taking a look at our setups. And throughout the session, we will have our Q&A box open. So if you guys have any questions, right, just feel free to put them there. So let's start with the economic calendar first. So for economic calendar, usually I'll just take a look at Forex Factory, or I will take a look at vantagemarkets.com. So either one works, right? So you can go to vantagemarkets.com. There's an economic calendar there. On this case, right, I'll just use the calendar that we have here. So this is filtered according to the key news events, right? So let me just bring up the calendar. Okay, so this is filtered according to the key news events, right? So you can see the upcoming sessions. Okay, so we have all the CPI data as well as Eurozone, CAD as well as Aussie data coming up. Right, so yesterday we saw quite a big movement in dollar, right? So dollar pairs. So these are the upcoming events, the key ones for today. Okay, so let's take a look at our setups right now. So there are a few setups that I want to go through, and also covering where we left off. So you can see here, right, since we're on US 100, let's just take a look at US 100 now, right here. Okay, so again, on the higher time frame, right, so US 100 actually broke its support level. You can see this level here, right? So price broke the support level. It's respecting this higher time frames resistance, right? So if you take a look at the higher time frames resistance here, right? So this is actually the daily resistance level. So we highlighted this area previously. You saw how price reacted as both a support and resistance level. That was it was circled here, right? So price came in, tested as both a support and resistance, and right now we're seeing a pullback, right? In terms of the higher time frame zones, right? These are the ones that are marked out in gray. So you can see the support resistance areas here, right? So this is the picture on the daily. On the 4 hours time frame, right, back where we saw price on Wednesday, you can see that price basically formed a new structure. So it broke above this level, right? And this area for us was still the support level, right? So we're waiting for a break and close below this level before it could signal more downside. So if you take a look at it on the 1 hour, you can see that the break and close, right? So price broke and closed below this level. We tested this region here. Okay, so when price came into this level, right, we're thinking whether if price would push up to form a new structure before breaking the structure. If not, right, a break of the support level, you can see, right, price came in, tested and closed it as a resistance. So retested this level as a resistance, and now this is in line with the higher time frame. It's in line with the higher time frame's resistance, and this is the structure on the 4 hours, right? So recall in the 4 hours. So in an uptrend, right, prices are expected to continue in an uptrend. Whereas in this case, right, if the low itself fails to form a high, right, so if fails to break above the last high, you can see that price came into resistance level, acknowledges it, and pushed lower. What we could see happen is that price could break below this area, right? So this, when we take short positions, is a potential take profit target. Okay, so right now for me, the direction is more bearish. So if you take a look at where we are currently, right? So if I were to just remove all these markings, and let's just keep the gray zones, because the gray zones are our higher time frame support resistance levels, right? So those are the zones that we want to keep. For the lower time frame zone, so in this case, we will just remove all this areas. Right, so if we take a look at this area right now, we have the support level, which is our potential target. So this is the support area, right? This is the potential target, as you can see here, right? So playing short positions into this area, right? And this is on the assumption that if price respects this resistance area and it breaks below this low, right? What this shows you is that right now we could be seeing a bearish market order flow. Okay, so this is the shorter term target. You can see that right now and on the 1 hour time frame, right? So if I'm on a 1 hour time frame, this is the area. You can see that this is the first support and resistance area, right? So essentially, price broke below this low. So you can see that price hovered about, tested as a support twice before it broke below the low, right? So right now, we could see a pullback into this area, and right now this serves as a smaller time frames resistance. So again, right, having found our zones, right, as always, we want to check if there are any retracements or extension levels that line up with these zones. So once you found this, right, what you can do next, this is the high and this is the low, right? So we want to take a Fibonacci retracement of this move, taking the highest point and the lowest point. So that's what we will do right now, right? So using this high as the starting point and this low as the ending point. So when we do that, right, you can see here, taking a Fibonacci retracement of the move from high to low. So like I've mentioned yesterday, right, as much as possible, we try to take retracements and extension levels where this trend line, so if you actually open up the settings here, you can see that there is this trend line checkbox, right? So just tick this and you can see what we have essentially is that this area, right? So try as much as possible to get a direct movement. So one impulsive move down where prices are respecting this trend line as a line of best fit. So in this example, you can see that after we did our Fibonacci retracement, right, what we're trying to do next is to see if there are any levels that line up with the zone. So in this case, the 38.2% retracement lines up with this area, right? So which means that this is a resistance area, this is our support level, so we could see a pullback into this zone before playing a bigger push down. Okay, so this is for the support area here, so resistance and support level. So this is for US 100, right? If you want to wait for a higher time frame confirmation, so let's say you want to wait for a break below structure, you can see that structure in this case would be this area here. So this area which has been tested both as a support and resistance. This is also the last low, right? So if price breaks below this area, what this suggests is that right now we're forming a new leg. If price breaks below this area, come into this zone before we see the pullback, you can see that right now, this itself is a new leg. This is the high and it broke the low. So if the downtrend is to continue, we're not expecting a break of the last high, but that's only if price breaks below this support level here. Okay, so this is the picture for me on US 100. Right, let's take a look at dollar index as well. And if you guys have any chart requests, right, do put them under the chat. Okay, so you can see that dollar index is pushing much higher. It broke the resistance area, right? And the support levels are still being respected. So on the higher time frame first, right? Again, let's take a look at it, right? So on the higher time frame, on the monthly, it's sitting on a support level. You can see here, right? Resistance turn support level. Even if you to put the picture in close, right? So if you put the chart in close, you can see that price came to test it as both a support and resistance here. So if I to just shift this, you can see, right? So price came in, tested this area as a resistance, broke and retested this level as a support twice, right? So this is the picture on the monthly. If you go to the weekly time frame, you can see on the weekly, right now it's still again sitting on a support area. So it's really more of a zone than a specific level, right? So resistance and support level, once again, you can see here, right? So a sharp rejection. Price pushed up strongly before we saw that sharp rejection of this level. Again, in close, you see this, right? And then following which, we can see that right now where we are, right, there is a resistance then support level. If you go to the daily time frame, you can see that price broke above the last resistance area. Okay, so this is the last resistance area. Again, how we got this level, just looking at how price interacted with this zone. This is also the 23.6%. So what we can see on dollar index is that price pulls back, right, pulled back, and right now it broke above this resistance then support level. Okay, so this is the most immediate support. So if I were to just remove this area here, So you can see on the 4 hours, right? So this was the previous resistance. If I were to extend this across twice, what happened is that price tested this area. You can see tested both as a resistance, broke above it, retested as a support, and right now it's continuing to the upside. Okay, so dollar index for me is still bullish, right? You can see that the support levels are being respected, right? So price did not actually revisited this low, right? It came in a range. So this was the range that we identified previously. Right now you can see that price broke above the range, right? So now this becomes a support and resistance level, this area here. Okay, so dollar index for me is still bullish. Let's remove all this, right? Because all these markings, these retracement levels are no longer valid. Right now, what we have in terms of the resistance and support level, right? This is the most immediate level here. Okay, so having identified this, right, what you can again do, right, is to check if there are any retracements and extensions that line up here. So as always, right, we want to use the most immediate move. So for retracement, you can see that this is the push up. So if we do see a pullback, right, this would be the move. So this is the lowest point, this is the highest point. So if you take a Fibonacci retracement of this move, right, so taking the low to high here, right, so same thing, you can see that the purple line that we have, right, this would be the trend line. So as much as possible, we try and find price or try and find movements where prices are following this trend lines. So on this move up, the 38.2% retracement, right? This is actually the retracement. This lines up with this support zone that we found. Okay, so this is one. So this is the most immediate support level, right? The next support level that we have is actually this area here. So for this area, right, there isn't a really good retracement level we can do, right? The most, or rather the only one that we can do is actually here, from low to high. Okay, so this is the only one, but you can see that if I were to draw a horizontal line across this, there's this portion where price is below, above and below this zone, right? So this area, this is not the best. Right, but that's the only retracement that we have, right? So let's see what we have here. So on this retracement itself, the most immediate level is actually the 61.8 retracement. Okay, so let me just remove this. So the 50% retracement, which we did previously, right? This was found using these 2 points back when price was the highest here. So you can see that we identified the support level, right? So this was the support level, but price did not pull back into this area before it forms a new high. So in this case, for your retracement level, you would actually need to change your starting and ending point, right? So I've updated the retracement level to this new point, and you can see that this is basically the 61.8 retracement here, right? So right now, the 61.8 retracement lines up with our second support. Okay, so having identified the two support levels, right, what we want to do next is to see if there are any resistance areas to watch, right? So the most immediate resistance level that we have, right, just based on the graphical level in this zone, you can see that it's this area. So if I were to just shrink this, you can see this zone, right? So again, I'm looking at areas where price came and interacted with this zone, right? Or if you can draw a horizontal line or horizontal area across, which divides the chart neatly, right? So both the top and bottom. So in this case, you can see that this is actually an area that divides the chart very neatly across, right? Both as a support and resistance. So this is the blue zone that we have, right? So having found this area, what you want to do next with this zone is that you want to see if there are any retracements or extension levels that line up here. Okay, so for retracement level, we would have to zoom out slightly, right? So this is actually the whole move. You can see this big move down. So if I were to do a retracement level, right, it's best that I take it from this point, the highest point and the lowest point. Okay, so let's do that and see what we have. So if you take from the highest point down to the lowest point, you can see this area itself. Okay, so we have the 38.2% just lying slightly above this. So how we can make use of this area? It's that if you are actually taking a longer term position, right? So if you want to sell, right, coming into this zone and you don't want to wait for a smaller time frame confirmation, what you can do is that the 38.2% is lying just slightly above the level, right? So that can be a reference for your stop loss. Okay, so that's one way you can consider using these levels. But generally, I would say that as much as possible, right, we try and find areas where we want to wait for smaller time frame confirmations instead of just taking immediate entries, right? Because this could be a news event, right? That could be just a spike up into this area or even beyond. Okay, so this is the picture for me on dollar index, right? Right now, in terms of the retracement levels, there aren't any that line up with this resistance area that we have found. So the next thing that we want to check also, right, apart from just our retracement, we can also check for our extension levels. So again, right, a quick recap of what we have covered. Fibonacci extensions are basically zigzag patterns. So you can see that these are the zigzag patterns. Right, so again, we want to use 3 turning points. So those 3 turning points would be the points that we are using for our projection, right? So those 3 points, you can see that in this case, right, the chart would be more similar to the first pattern that we saw. So the first pattern that we saw is this area, right? So once you have found the zigzag pattern, you want to use the Fibonacci extension to project these levels. So let's do that and see what we have, right? So you can see this area, right? This is 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. Okay, so again, I'm trying to find if there are any levels that line up with the resistance zone. So you can see this area, right? It's lining up really nicely, this resistance area here. So this lines up very nicely with this 100% extension. Okay, so for me, dollar index is still bullish, right? Especially now when it's sitting on a support level. So we could see a pullback into the support zone. Right, let me just remove this trend lines so that we're able to see chart clearer. Okay, so for me, this is the area, right? This is the most immediate support level. If we do see a further push up, right, the next level that we can see a potential target at would be at around 1.105.50. Okay, so these are the 2 zones to watch, right? So there is also some kind of ascending trend line that prices are holding above right now. So you see this area. Okay, but once again, right, if price comes into this support zone, right, as always, right, you will first see that reversal on the smaller time frame. So that will happen first before we see the bigger time frame. Okay, so let's take a look at another pair, right? And if you guys have any questions as well, right, on the pairs, right, do put them under the tab. So let's take a look at euro dollar. Okay, so euro dollar has been on a downtrend. You can see that this area, so on the higher time frame, if I believe this is on the daily, right? Let's take a look at it, the picture on the monthly first. So on the monthly picture, we have this again, right? Resistance area. So this region here. So you can see that we drew this line, right, or this horizontal zone again that splits this support resistance levels. And running slightly below this area, right, it's the 50% retracement. So we saw how price reacted here, right? So this is the 50% retracement. And this 50% retracement is taken with these 2 reference points, right? Using this high and low, you can see the 50% retracement here. So this is the 50%. We saw how price reacted below this area. And we also have this weekly support zone, right, that we've highlighted in gray. So these are the 2 zones to watch. And in line with the weekly support zone, you can see that when we did a retracement from low to high, there is a 23.6 retracement. Okay, so when you go onto the daily time frame, this is the picture on the daily, right? So on the daily time frame, we have again a resistance turn support area. But as you can see, right, even though prices are on the demand zone here, right, again, whenever there's a respect of these areas, right, the reversal will first happen on the smaller time frame. So you'll see that there is a change in structure first happening, right, within this area. And then in that case, right, what this shows is that we could be expecting a further leg up. But as of where we are right now, so if you take a look at it on the smaller time frame, right, so let's go down to either the 4 hours or 1 hour. So take a look at the current market structure. So you can see that prices were in a range. So coming into this zone, right, it hesitated a bit. You saw price trading in a range, right? This was our upside confirmation. You can see this area. Right, so 2 resistance levels, price tested twice. And if you talk about the concept of highs and lows, right? So when the low itself fails to form a new high or it fails to break above the high, this low itself is a potential target and it can be used for take profits for shorts. So in this case, you can see that price broke below the range, right? But what's more important is that coming into this demand area that we have, you can see that it's still showing bearish order flow, forming lower lows and lower highs. right? So if you were to mark out the successive highs and lows, you can see that it's actually lower, and it's the same, right? If I switch it to close. So if you have trouble trying to identify the highs and lows in terms of which one is significant, right? I would suggest that just put it in close, right? And just mark out the peak and troughs. So you can see that this is one. This is one peak, right? And then we have the other peak and this troughs here, right? So the next one that we have coming in, right? So the assumption is that price will continue forming your lower lows and lower highs until there is a break of the last high that took out the low, and this suggests a change in structure. If there isn't a case, right, you can see that this demand zone could be violated, right, and price could just continue further down, right, breaking this area. Okay, so this is the picture for me on the 4 hours. You can see right now it's still bearish, right? Any pullback into this area itself, we could still play a drop. So in this case, right, this is the picture on the 4 hours. You can see that on the 4 hours right now, right, if I to zoom in further, focus on the most recent price movement, where is the most immediate support or resistance level? You can see that the most immediate support resistance level on the 1 hour, right? So let me just remove all these markings and we just focus on the most recent developments. So we have this range. Okay, so where is the most immediate support level? You can see that the most immediate support level was actually here. So the range that was also on the 4 hours, right? You saw how price interacted with this zone 3 times before a clear break below. So for this zone, right, how do you try and find retracement levels here? So you can see that this is the push down and this is the pullback, right? So for retracement, you want to identify the highest point and lowest point. So using Fibonacci retracement for both, for this move, right, taking the high and low, you can see that this area itself, okay, we have the 38.2%. So I'll just put this in a different color, right? 38.2% lining up with this zone. So this is one. And the next zone that we have would actually be this area here. Okay, so this is the next resistance area. So the first one that we have is actually this. So let me just put this in blue, right, so that we're able to differentiate. So this is the lower time frame resistance, the first area, right? Again, pulling back into this area if you want to wait for a reversal, right? So we wouldn't know whether price is going to come into this resistance. It could push deeper into this whole leg itself, right, before we see a bigger push down, right? So in this case, right, what we want to wait for is that if price comes into this area before reversing, right, you will again see that change in structure on your smaller time frame. If you're on the 1 hour, right, this is the picture on the 1 hour. You can use the 5 minutes or even the 15 minutes to see this point. Okay, so this is one, right? If not, the other resistance area we have is actually this zone. Okay, so again, right, once we identified this, what we can do next, right, taking this move from high to low. So Fibonacci retracement of this move. So when you do that, taking retracement of this move from high to low, same thing, right? Use the key levels. So these are the key levels, right? So we have the 50% as well as 23.6. I'll just put this in pink so that we're able to see this more clearly, right? So we can differentiate the levels. So you can see the 50% and 23.6. These are the ones that are in line with the blue zones that we found. Okay, so these are the 2 areas here, right? I'll remove this. Okay, so these are the 2 resistance areas on the H1. So if price comes into this area, right, and there's a reversal on the smaller time frame, we could play a further drop down, either from either of these areas. Okay, so this is the picture for me on Euro Dollar, right? So if you guys have any other questions as well, right, do put them under the tab. Okay, so if there are any specific charts that you want us to take a look at, right, and then let's take a look at Aussie dollar. So you can see Aussie dollar, right, has been on a very strong push down, very bearish move. Oh, okay, I got requests for DEX. Okay, then let's take a look at DEX instead. So sorry for that, I missed your message. Okay, let's take a look at DEX. Okay, let me just check if I have the right. The right code. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at this, right? So again, for DAX, if you're on the monthly picture or even the weekly picture here, you can see that there is this area. So this zone, again, resistance and support area, price testing as both a support and resistance. Basically the gray zone that we've highlighted previously, right? So this area. And we saw how price broke above this level and is currently testing this zone, right? So in terms of resistance area, right, where we are currently, right, the most immediate resistance would be this zone here. Right, so you can see if you want to take it based on specific candles, right, I'll actually take it from this area here. Okay, if you switch it to weekly or line chart, right, the close, you can see that there's this high, right? So in this zone, price tested this high multiple times. Just remove this. Right, so you can see that price came in, tested this multiple times, right? So this is on the weekly. If you go on to the daily time frame, you can see that on the daily time frame, right, where we are here, just remove all these drawings, all these markings, I mean. Right, so currently we are coming into a resistance area. You can see, right, lower lows, lower highs, coming into a resistance zone here. Okay, this is the resistance area, and we also have another immediate resistance level here. So again, right, like just looking at price, how violent is the reaction? You see this move, right? So essentially price pushed down, and we saw this huge push up before we saw that rejection. So this is a resistance area. If you put it in close, you can see the same thing as well. So again, right, significant price movements. So this is one. So if again, just draw a horizontal line across, you can see this area here. Right, so price came in, tapped into this high, right? And this is the picture on the daily. So let's check the 4 hours. So on the 4 hours, you can see that there is a very clear structure that's being formed. Right, so this is the low. So again, right, if this low itself failed to break the high, you can see that price came into a resistance area and right now it's pushing lower. What this suggests is that this low would be a potential target. So any shorts itself, right, we can take this low as a potential target. And this low itself, it's once it becomes a potential target, right, a break of this zone would signal a further push down. Okay, so this is the picture. Right now, it's still not bearish yet. If you take a look at market structure, right, this is actually the last low or the last support level we have on the smaller time frame. So smaller time frame, I'll just use a different color in this case. Right, so this is the resistance turn support area. Right, if you put it in close, you can see pretty much the same thing as well. Right, so resistance turn support level price coming into this region. So right now we are in this low. Okay, so if price breaks below this area, I think we can see much bigger push down, much bigger downside. This is the next support level that we have, right? And following the drop below the support level, you can see just in terms of graphical areas, right? The next level that we have is actually this zone here. Okay, so this is just highlighting it in terms of graphical levels. Once we've identified that, the next thing we want to do is to check our retracements and extensions. So I think that once price breaks below this area, right, this is actually the most immediate level. Okay, so this is the confirmation, right? So until price breaks below this zone, which is at around 152.50, 152.40. Let me just click on this. 152.45. Right, let's just put it. Yeah. So once price breaks below this area, we can see a bigger push down. Okay, so this itself would be the level if you're on the 4 hours picture or even on a 1 hour. Right now, this leg itself, right, we're seeing a bigger push down. And I think that because of this move, so if you take a look at the most recent market structure, this is the last low, right? So if this low fails to break the high, this low itself is a potential target. So we could see price come deeper into this demand area. Okay, but the downside as compared to where prices are right now is pretty limited. You see this move. Okay, so let's check if there are any retracement levels that line up with the zone, right? So for retracement level, this is the push down, the pullback. So when you check the retracement level from low to high, right, you can see that in this case, the 50% retracement or the 61 itself actually would be more in line with this gray zone, right? So 61 is actually taken from this low to the high. And another one that we can check is our extension level. So they are basically zigzag patterns, right? So in this case, we're trying to find if there are any support levels there, right? So this is the zigzag pattern, 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. You can see the 100% extension lying slightly below. In fact, the 100% extension is lying almost in line with the 61, right? So this zone, which is at about 15196.20. Okay, so price could come into this area here. Once there is a break in structure, right? So recall in our Fibonacci extension webinar, right? Once there's a break in structure, what we can do is to wait for pullback into a resistance area to play the drop or the shorts. Okay, so in this case, when you're trying to find extension for resistance, you're looking at zigzag patterns that look like that or like this, right? So, but this only happens if there's a break of this low, which will also be a break in structure. Okay, so I hope that is clear, right? Further. Okay, so I see that those are all the questions that we have, right? So if that is the case, okay, yeah. Okay, so if that's the case, we have come to the end of this session, right? So thanks everyone for staying with us till the end as always, right? It's great having you guys, right? So if you guys want to take a look at the previous recordings, just go to vantagemarkets.com/webinars, right? They do have a link to the YouTube page. Okay, so thanks everyone. Stay safe, trade safe, right? Have a great weekend, and we will catch you guys again next week. Thank you and goodbye.